There's some major drama in the Democratic Senate primary in Texas. Right now, Texas State Rep James Talrico is leading Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in the race to be the Democratic nominee for Senate. Both are trying to do what no Democrat has done in a generation: win a statewide race in Texas, which has not happened since 1994.
It's happening. It's actually happening right now in real time. This is the moment the political world has been watching for. The moment where the consequences finally catch up to the president. Democrats have just filed formal impeachment articles against Donald Trump. Not threats, not speculation, not media hype. Actual articles of impeachment submitted to Congress officially entered into the record, making this the first formal impeachment proceeding of Trump's second term. And Trump, he absolutely lost his mind. He went on Truth Social and unleashed a full-scale meltdown that would be embarrassing for a teenager, let alone the President of the United States.
Our president holds the ultimate public trust. When he betrays that trust and puts himself before country, he endangers the Constitution, he endangers our democracy, and he endangers our national security. The framers of the Constitution prescribed a clear remedy for presidents who so violate their oath of office.
He's calling it a witch hunt. He's claiming it's fake. He's accusing Democrats of hating America and hating victory. He's doing absolutely everything except what a president should do, defending his actions on the actual merits. But here's the thing that makes this moment so significant. This was entirely predictable. This wasn't a surprise attack. Democrats said back in February in plain language that if Trump started a war without congressional authorization, they would impeach him. And Trump started a war without congressional authorization. Now they're following through.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached. We don't impeach them. You know why? Because they're meaner than we are. We should have impeached Joe Biden for 100 different things.
Cause and effect, action and consequence. It's actually textbook constitutional accountability. We're sitting here on March 2nd, 2026, and the landscape is brutal for Trump. American soldiers are dead from Hezbollah missile attacks launched in retaliation for his strikes. The United States is increasingly isolated on the world stage. Oil prices are spiking, driving inflation through the roof. Republicans are openly nervous about the midterm elections. Vice President Vance is reportedly distancing himself, making sure everyone knows he had doubts. And now on top of all of that, impeachment articles have been filed. And here's what makes this different from every previous impeachment push.
Today, in service to our duty to the Constitution and to our country, the House Committee on the Judiciary is introducing 2 articles of impeachment charging the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, with committing high crimes and misdemeanors. The first article is for abuse of power.
Democrats actually have a legitimate constitutional point, a strong one. Trump apparently bypassed Congress entirely. He didn't seek approval. He didn't follow the process. He just ordered strikes on Iran and informed people afterward if he informed them at all. That's not how the Constitution works. That's not how American democracy is supposed to function. Representative Al Green introduced the articles, and the charge is specific abuse of war powers. This isn't some vague political accusation. It's a constitutional charge rooted in Article 1 of the Constitution, which explicitly gives Congress, not the President, the power to declare war.
H-Res 939, House Resolution 939. This resolution, House 939, impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors.
Congress controls military authorization. Congress appropriates funds for the armed forces. The president executes policy, but Congress decides when and where America goes to war. The articles allege that Trump violated that fundamental constitutional balance. They claim he acted as if he alone possessed the authority to commit the nation to armed conflict, ignoring the separation of powers that has governed this country for over 2 centuries. And honestly, setting aside partisanship, they're right. This is a genuine constitutional crisis. The War Powers Resolution has been federal law since 1973. It's clear and specific.
I want people to know about this courage and the pushback and the antithetical forces. I want people to know about it. And I want people to know that I understand what happened yesterday. It was comparable to what happened at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Yesterday was a seminal moment in time. It was comparable.
The president can only commit armed forces to military action under 3 circumstances: a formal declaration of war from Congress, specific statutory authorization from Congress, or a direct attack on the United States requiring immediate defensive action. Trump had none of those. Congress never declared war on Iran. Congress never authorized strikes against Iranian leadership. And Iran absolutely did not attack the United States first. We attacked them. We launched the first strikes. So, under the plain text of federal law, Trump violated the War Powers Resolution.
Republicans in the Senate have killed a resolution that would have put limits on President Trump's ability to take action in Venezuela. 5 Republicans had broken rank last week to advance a war powers measure, many concerned about the possibility President Trump would order troops on the ground in Venezuela. One of those senators, Missouri's Josh Hawley, spoke before the vote about what changed his mind.
I've had multiple very substantive discussions on this issue over the last 5 days. And, what the administration told me all the time was, they said, we think that this ties our hands. And I said, my concern is ground troops in Venezuela without congressional authorization. And they said, well, we don't want to do that.
He acted outside his constitutional authority, and now Congress is moving to hold him accountable. Trump's response to all of this is almost comically inadequate. He goes on Truth Social and posts, "Crooked Democrats file fake impeachment right after our brave troops die fighting terrorists. They hate victory. They hate America." Sad. Let's unpack that for a second. First, the troops died because of his war. American soldiers are dead because Trump ordered strikes on Iran and Iran retaliated. That's not complicated. Second, they didn't die fighting terrorists in any traditional sense. They died in a retaliatory attack from a nation we struck first. Third, calling this a witch hunt doesn't address the constitutional question. It doesn't explain why he had the authority to bypass Congress. It's just vitriol, personal attacks, and deflection. But here's what makes this moment genuinely significant. There are legitimate constitutional scholars, legal experts who've studied this for decades who agree that Trump likely violated the War Powers Resolution. This isn't just partisan noise. Law professors, constitutional authorities, people who've dedicated their lives to understanding the separation of powers are saying this is a real issue. That's what makes these articles different from previous efforts. They're built on something concrete, a specific federal law and a specific constitutional provision. Let's dig into what these articles actually contain, because there's real substance here. The articles introduce what they're calling Article 3, which specifically targets what they describe as international aggression via the Iran strikes without congressional approval. That's formal impeachment language, but translated into plain English, it means Trump ordered military strikes on a foreign nation without getting permission from Congress, which violates the Constitution. The strikes killed Iran's supreme leader. They killed top military commanders. They destroyed military bases and nuclear facilities. And Trump did all of it without consulting Congress, without seeking authorization, without following the constitutional process. These articles build on previous impeachment efforts. Democrats have been pushing various articles since Trump took office in January 2026. There was HRE's 353, which included 7 different counts covering obstruction, corruption, misuse of office, a whole range of allegations. Now they're adding this Article 3 about war powers, creating a cumulative case that Trump has systematically abused his authority across multiple dimensions. The constitutional framework here matters because understanding it is understanding why this is such a serious charge. The Constitution deliberately divides war powers between the president and Congress. The founders were terrified of concentrating too much military authority in one person. They'd seen what European monarchs could do with standing armies and unilateral war powers. So they gave Congress the power to declare war, to raise and support armies, to provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government and regulation of the armed forces. Congress controls the purse strings and the authorization. The president is commander-in-chief, meaning once Congress authorizes war, the president directs it. The president can respond to sudden attacks. But the president cannot unilaterally decide that America is at war. That's Congress's job. That's the checks and balances system. That's the constitutional design. And Trump allegedly violated that design. He allegedly said, in effect, I'm the president. I can start a war. I don't need Congress. That's the alleged violation at the heart of these articles. Now, presidents have pushed the boundaries of war powers for decades. Both Democrats and Republicans have ordered military strikes without formal congressional approval, but they usually try to justify it within the legal framework. They say it was a response to an imminent threat. They say it was a limited operation. They cite specific statutory authority. They offer legal justifications. Trump did offer a justification. He claimed there was a threat from Iran. He claimed action was necessary, but the strikes weren't limited. They weren't a response to an attack on America. They were preemptive and aggressive. They killed the supreme leader of a sovereign nation. That's not a limited military action. That's starting a war. That's exactly the kind of major military commitment the Constitution reserves for congressional decision. So, Democrats are alleging Trump violated the Constitution, violated federal law, and essentially declared himself a dictator with unlimited war-making authority. And his response is to call it a witch hunt without addressing the legal arguments at all. The timing of these articles is devastating for Trump. Democrats filed on March 2nd, immediately after the first American casualties from retaliatory strikes. They're using those deaths as evidence that this was a reckless decision made without proper oversight. They're saying this is exactly why the Constitution requires congressional involvement, because presidents need checks on their power. Otherwise, you get situations where Americans die because one person made a unilateral decision without asking anyone. And they have a point. If Trump had gone to Congress, there would have been debate. There would have been hearings. There would have been intelligence briefings. Congress would have asked hard questions. Are you sure about this? Do you understand the risks? Have you thought through Iranian retaliation? What's the exit strategy? How long will this last? Maybe Congress would have approved it anyway. Maybe they would have said yes. But at least there would have been oversight. At least the American people's representatives would have been part of the decision. Instead, Trump decided alone, and now Americans are dead, and now the world is turning against us, and now impeachment articles are filed. The causality is clear. The decision to bypass Congress led to American deaths. That's the argument, and it's difficult to counter. Here's what this actually means for the political landscape moving forward. First, this impeachment push is going to consume Trump's entire term. This is going to dominate news coverage. Trump is going to spend every day defending himself. Every interview will be about impeachment. Every statement will address the allegations. Every press conference will involve questions about constitutional violations. That means he can't focus on his agenda. He can't focus on the economy or inflation or any other priority. His advisors will be consumed with legal defense. His staff will be distracted. His energy will be divided. That's devastating for any presidency. Now, impeachment probably won't lead to removal. Democrats don't have the votes in the House to pass articles over unified Republican opposition, and they certainly don't have the Senate votes for conviction. But the process itself is damaging. The debates are damaging. The coverage is damaging. Just having articles filed changes the conversation. Every time Democrats talk about what Trump did, they're talking about the Constitution and war powers and legal authority. The more they talk about it, the more Americans understand that Trump might have actually violated the law. That air it is support that makes people nervous. Second, this is going to damage Trump with his own base. Not all of it, but a significant portion. The MAGA movement included many anti-war voters. They supported Trump in part because he promised to end forever wars, to bring troops home, to focus on America first. They believed he would get out of foreign entanglements, not start new ones. Now Trump is starting a new war without congressional approval. And some of those anti-war supporters feel betrayed. You're seeing fractures in the base. You're seeing online commentary from people who voted for Trump questioning whether this is what they signed up for. Impeachment amplifies those fractures. It gives legitimacy to the anti-war sentiment within the MAGA coalition. Vice President Vance is reportedly distancing himself, and that's significant. He apparently had doubts before the strikes. He wanted separate briefings. He wanted to understand the risks. Now that Americans are dying, that looks prescient. That looks like Vance was right to be skeptical. He's positioning himself as the careful, thoughtful alternative, which is good for his political future, but terrible for Trump. It shows disunity in the administration. It shows that even Trump's own VP had concerns, and unity is everything heading into an election. Third, and most importantly, this is devastating for the midterms. The 2026 election is now going to be about whether Trump violated the Constitution, whether he abused his power, whether Americans support endless wars, and the polling is brutal for Republicans. 55% of Americans oppose the Iran war. A clear majority thinks this was a mistake. Combine that with casualties, economic impacts from oil spikes, and global isolation, and you have a toxic environment for the party in power. Democrats are going to run on this. Every Democratic candidate will say, Trump started a war without Congress. Trump violated the Constitution. Trump is a threat to democracy and the rule of law. In competitive districts, that message is going to resonate. You could see how seats flip based on this issue alone. Women voters concerned about their children dying in an unnecessary war. Moderate voters concerned about constitutional governance. Young voters opposed to endless military interventions. Republicans could easily lose the House. And if Democrats take control, investigations follow, subpoenas follow, hearings follow. Democrats will want to know exactly how the war decision was made. They'll want to know if Congress was properly briefed. They'll want to know if the intelligence was accurate. They'll want to know everything. That investigation will dominate Trump's second term. It could lead to more impeachment articles. It could lead to criminal referrals. This will define his entire presidency. Here's what's actually going to happen in the coming weeks. House Democrats will push these articles. GOP leadership will try to table them, to kill them in committee, to make them go away. There will be debate. There will be votes. There will be a circus. And through it all, the message will be clear. Trump started a war without Congress. Trump violated the Constitution. Trump abused his power, and Democrats are holding him accountable. Will it remove him from office? No. Republicans control the Senate, and they're not convicting their own president. But that misses the point. The impeachment process itself is the punishment. The debate itself is the accountability. The fact that Congress is formally discussing whether the president violated the Constitution is damaging because every time that question is raised, Americans think about it, consider it, talk about it. And the more they think about it, the more they start to believe maybe he did. That belief carries into voting booths. That belief flips elections. That belief shapes history. Trump could have avoided all of this. He could have gone to Congress. He could have asked for authorization. He could have had the debate. Maybe they would have approved it. Maybe they would have said yes. But at least he would have followed the Constitution. At least he would have respected the law. Instead, Trump decided he knew better. Trump decided Congress didn't need to be involved. Trump decided he could start a war by himself. Now he's dealing with the consequences, impeachment articles, a fractured base, American casualties, economic damage, global isolation, an election where voters are angry about a war they never approved. This is going to define his entire second term. This is going to be what people remember. Not policy achievements, not legislative wins, but the fact that he started a war without Congress and got impeached for it. That's the legacy. That's what's happening right now. The articles are filed. The process has begun. And Trump's meltdown on Truth Social is just the opening act of a drama that will consume the rest of his presidency.